Hi, I'm Julie.
And I'm Caleb. Welcome to Nursing You, the podcast where we redefine nursing in today's healthcare landscape. Join Julie and I as we step outside the box on an unconventional healing journey.
Together, we're diving deep into the heart of nursing, exploring the intricate relationships between caregivers and patients with sincerity and depth.
Our mission is to create an open and collaborative experience where learning is expansive and fun.
From the psychological impacts of nursing to the larger implications on the healthcare system, we're sparking conversation that lead to healing and innovation.
We have serious experience and we won't pull our punches, but we'll also weave in some humor along the way because we all know laughter is often the best medicine.
It is, and we won't shy away from any topic, taboo or not. From violence and drugs to family and love, we're tackling it all.
Our nursing knowledge is our base, but we'll be bringing insights from philosophy, religion, science, and art to deepen our understanding of the human experience.
So whether you're a nurse, a healthcare professional, or just someone curious about the world of caregiving, this podcast is for you.
One last thing, a quick disclaimer before we dive in. While we're both registered nurses, nothing we discuss here should be taken as medical advice. Always consult with your physician or qualified healthcare provider for any medical concerns you may have. The views expressed here are our own and don't necessarily reflect those of our employers or licensing bodies.
So let's get started on this journey together. Welcome to Nursing You, where every conversation leads to a healthier world. I do have a little cold today, so I'm a little nasal. But other than that, we're here. It's raining. Wi-Fi's working.
Another form of breathing that I've done, especially I use it for sleep when I'm having difficulty sleeping.
Yeah.
It's called the techo breathing. It's where you breathe in very slowly. You progressively, it's all nasal breathing. So you're just breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. And the progression is you start out at just normal pace, and then you slowly decrease the rate at which you're breathing, and slowing the intake and slowing the outtake. So basically the end goal is you don't want to be able to hear yourself breathing in or out, which means that you're going very, very slow.
Oh, wow.
And you do it for a prolonged period. And what happens is, and this is measurable, you build up the nitric oxide in your nasal passageway, and it vasodilates throughout your entire body and calms your system.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I've never heard of that. All the breathing I've done, I've never heard of that. Huh. Well, what is it called again?
I can actually post a link to
Okay.
one that I like to use.
Yeah.
We can do that later.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, today we're going to talk about, we kind of have this is like the third part of a little series that we, I think unintentionally kind of came up with, but we started talking about laughter, nurses using laughter in medicine, and then laughter for themselves, to heal, and how good that is, and then how right-brained that is. And then the next episode, number 7, was talking about the left side of the brain and kind of critical thinking and things like that, and how you can work both sides together. And so today we thought, well, let's talk about outcomes, of all of that. Outcomes in nursing, outcomes in our life due to nursing. We figured out how to screen share. So we're going to show some memes, which we think are funny because they're so true. You want to share yours first? Maybe.
That work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Me filling the room with negative energy because I chose to take care of sick people for money. That basically boils it right on down, doesn't it?
I mean, I feel like that is the outcome on the nurse's side.
Yeah.
End up, and we talked about this last week, the just the violence that we take on from the community, the anger and the hate, and, we aren't trained to process that out. You see, and you're just like, oh, how cute. You're so innocent. Like, you just have your nursing experience is fundamentally different than mine.
Yeah, clearly.
Clearly different experiences.
Yeah. And there are those nurses who they just got it good. I don't know. They got into they they just got in it good. They got in a good health system or with a not so threatening environment, or, and their nursing career has just been very different than ours. And that is so lucky
Good on you.
and great. I think that's what, yeah, I think that's what keeps nurses going back to nursing school, you know, is that outlook of, the rosy nurse and the big scrubs and the cute tinnies and, all of that kind of fun stuff. But, outcomes are different for each nurse. And, we're going to kind of talk through, some different outcomes.
Yeah.
And if you're kind of in
shots that you're
Yeah.
talking about, like, and then you see, like, I know on my Facebook, I've got a post that I shared, I reshared a few years ago, and it's one of those, it's a trauma bay in some ER that's just covered in blood.
Yeah.
And all the used supplies that are just trashing the room, all the equipment, it's just destroyed.
Yeah.
That's the glam shot of our career.
Right. For real. Glam shot. Yeah. And I mean, I remember it became really clear, especially during COVID, how little the public really knows about kind of how it is and what goes on. Because a lot of that stuff was shared because there was such ignorance to what the nurses were doing and what their role was in everything, during that time. And, it's shocking, I think. But it's so real. How many rooms have you cleaned up that looked just like that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, whether the patient died or went to the ICU or whatever, the room's empty now. Someone's got to clean that up.
Yeah.
And you go in, you start trashing, and needles go here, and you pick up and you wipe down and you strip the bed. And, I mean, it's this very odd sensation, but it's like it's complete and done, but it's nowhere near complete and done.
Uh-huh.
Whatever the outcome was of that situation, it's not over, because whoever's cleaning up that room, or the things in your mind that are that you'll think about through the weekend from what happened.
Uh-huh.
And so the outcome, there's lots of different ones. There's the outcome for the patient, and what happened to the patient and whether they survived or we saved their life and they're going to be fine. So, I think it happens a lot. A lot of people die, but there's a lot of times. I mean, you and I both have been a part of saving a lot of people's lives and really making a difference of being the one who knew, who caught, who acted, quickly because of the critical thinking of the team. We literally say, I mean, you are alive. And,
but how many of those do you remember? Like, I remember,
well, right.
I remember
Yeah.
I remember the worst of the worst. I don't remember.
Well, and that's because I forget who, but I just learned this. Our minds, and it's ancestral. So it's from clear back, whatever you believe, that our brains, things were imprinted, negative things imprint more heavily than positive things. And that's because you have to react quicker, swifter, harder, longer to the negative things. So to the negative threats, you have to produce action that could be life-saving, whether to your family, you're running from a bear or a dinosaur, or however far back you think this all goes. But negative situations imprint more heavily on the brain. And so for every negative situation that you come across, to kind of keep it even, you have to have it's 3 to 1, 3 positive situations that imprint on your brain to kind of keep you at a level. So if you have negative, 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 and then maybe you get to go to the store with your mom and you get a doll for your birthday, positive. Then you come home, parents fighting about money, all those things, or you just want to talk about nursing, negative, 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 negative from administration, negative from this. Nobody gives you credit. Nobody debriefs with you. You're just on your own. You don't get enough orientation. Your preceptor's a bitch, all and then you get the one positive, which is like, oh my God, low census. I get the night off. It's still not even. So you're literally like this. So unless you create positive experiences in your life to keep up with the negative things that you're going through, you will always be in a deficit. And that's just science. It's just how it is. That's how our brain is wired. And that was so interesting to me when I learned that, because a lot of people don't think they have control over what happens. You might not have control over what happens, but you do have control over what situation,
how you respond.
Yeah. And like counteracting that. So if you are in a position, and maybe if I knew this, I would have used some of this back then. All the negative. And you got negative at work, you got negative at home. It's stressful. You don't know really, you're trying your best. But if you don't create those positive moments, then you're always at a deficit. And I think, I'm thinking positive moments, even at work, like tape rolling contests for you remember rolling the tape? For you, that might have been even before you. We would go from the one pod, and it was a straight shot to the other pod. And so we'd sit here and we'd take rolls of tape and like roll it. And then whoever got the farthest, that would be the winner. Right. So, or the chair rolling contest, racing, and just laughing and finding connection and those kind of things while you're at work, while you're doing this hard work that does come with a lot of negative situations, finding the positive to kind of counteract a lot of that negative.
Yeah.
And thus then you could get a different outcome.
Yeah. I mean, there's different types of outcomes. Like, we've been kind of our little mini series has been about, we've kind of subdivided left and right brain, and now we're trying to kind of unify them in this conversation of, how to move forward, or, and, as we kind of talked about before we started recording, there's outcomes that affect the process, outcomes that affect emotions, so there's the patient outcomes, then there's the nursing outcomes, like on our personal side, which is kind of what I think our focus is that's the nurses.
Yeah.
But, I think kind of just making the one point that so much of the healthcare system is just focused on the numbers, that it has to be measurable. The outcomes. So outcomes can mean, like, to me as a critical care nurse at the bedside, outcome means what is physically happening to my patient. Like, is the patient okay, or is the patient dead? Or
are you alive or are you dead?
Alive or not alive? Yeah.
Right.
But outcomes to the rest of the healthcare system on the other side means a totally different thing. And I think that both are affecting the nurse. Like, we have, I think, part of the psyche of the Western mind is I came, I saw, I conquered, right? Like that's a saying. I think that's it is a Western statement, and it implies that if you show up and you do what needs to be done, you're going to win. You're going to conquer. You're going to, like, whatever. I'm using it in its most general term. That as nurses, we came to work, we showed up, we saw what needed to be done, we did it, and then we have no control over the outcome, because that statement implies that we have control over the outcome.
Right.
And we don't. So on the clinical side, why is it that it hurts so much to lose a patient and then and ultimately become numb to losing
Yeah.
patients to some degree.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just like, oh, another one,
Yeah.
another one,
Yeah.
another one. Oh,
Yeah.
3 tonight? Okay.
Yeah.
It's just so far out of our control, but we still have to do what we know is best to do to care for them.
Yeah.
And so there's like this strange relationship of control and letting go.
Yeah. Yeah. It
But we
really,
don't
really
really know
is.
how to do it. I didn't know how to
No.
do it. I
No. No.
still
No. No. No.
really don't know
Right.
how to do it.
No. And I think we're still figuring that out. I think that the environments that you and I both work in now are different. And if we knew then what we know now and what we've been through, I think both of our experience would be a little bit different. We would be able, I know, I'll talk for me. I know I would be able to stand back, kind of bird's eye view it easier. I didn't, I was very tunnel vision. You're driven. You're 100%er. You do always your best. You want everybody, you expect the best from everybody else. And it's narrow, and narrow is necessary a lot of the time. If I would have been able to stand back more times than not and really kind of look at the grand situation and two things of what was happening then there at the bedside on the unit and with everybody else, I think I would have been affected so much. I would have taken on so much of myself, like everybody else's energy, I guess maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But also then I would have been able to be a little bit more wide view of how is this affecting you mentally? Like I didn't really think about myself back then. I thought I didn't give any time to do it. I just kept going.
I'm sharing this again
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
where it ends up.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it and it's so that's like that is how I felt lots of days going into work.
So effing angry, and this coffee is
Yeah. It's like shitty coffee anyways. And yeah, you know, so there are outcomes that we have no control over. But then there are the outcomes for like our mental health and how we show up at home and that we have a lot of control over. It feels for me, it felt at the time I didn't have control. I didn't even realize I needed to have control. I just was like marching through the day and doing what I thought was my best, which was sometimes like white knuckling, just holding on for dear life, without being like grounded and stopping for a moment and what do I have control over and what do I not have control, and kind of rationalizing that. Um, you said the outcomes for like the hospital and it made me think about the surveys that are sent to patients, the surveys about service, and there's, a section for was your room temperature good enough? Was your food good? Did food service ask you what you wanted to eat? Was your meal correct? Then there's like the doctor section. Did the doctor talk to you? Do you know your diagnosis? Do you know, then there's the whole nurses section, which, do they explain to you? Do they explain your meds? There's literally like 40 questions or more that they're given on this survey. And the surveys, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but the surveys are used by Medicare for reimbursement to the hospital. So the better your surveys, like they have to be to a certain standard to get reimbursement from Medicare. So if you have really shitty care and poor patient surveys or outcomes, then the hospital won't get reimbursed by Medicare, or they'll get
I think we did talk about this. I remember saying, so the guy that threatened to murder me after my shift, his survey counts.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that the survey shouldn't count.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, it's so, I don't really even know what to call it. It puts nurses at this, like at the mercy, someone's opinion,
Mhm.
And like, because when I worked as a manager, part of that was you have to address your low scores. So if you have low scores in the nursing parts that supposedly we have control over, and I would have had control over the nurses having control over that, which
Mhm.
all of it's outrageous
Right.
because there is no control. I mean,
Right.
you could control your attitude, you could control, being nice, not arguing, just being a decent human, going in and speaking with the patients, um, and teaching and doing all those things. But even if you do everything up to par, they're going to have opinions. Their subjective opinion matters on that survey,
Uh-huh.
you know?
So that kind of like when we first started talking about this and doing this, it was, one of the thoughts or one of the things I think I've said on here before, is that it's not just for healthcare workers, it's for family members as well. Like
Yeah.
like my hope would be that like we can't change this
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
We can maybe affect the people that listen to us and want to engage with us in this conversation. And maybe, like best case scenario, like people outside of healthcare listen and gain some education about what the experience of the nursing care giving really is.
Yeah.
And this is like one of the few things because it's all the problems are so complex, but this one
Uh-huh.
problem, like if people were educated by nurses about what the experience of being a nurse is and what to expect when they're coming into the hospital. Like if we had educational tools for the public that they could listen to and, oh, these people are experiencing the absolute worst face of society that
Yeah.
could possibly be presented. If we could educate the populace to that instead of relying on Hollywood. I mean,
Yeah.
like we are so advanced, but we on one hand and on the other hand, we are so limited. Like the human
Very
experience
limited.
is designed to end.
Yeah.
Like we're
Yeah.
designed to end. DNA has a lifespan. Like
Yeah.
it's it's like I don't know, have I ever told you my how I've conceptualized DNA?
Maybe. Remind.
Okay, so you got the two parts that come together,
Uh-huh.
and once they unite, there's like this flash of light, this beautiful
Mhm.
flash of light. Then at that moment, it becomes that light is almost like I think of that light as a homing beacon, a homing to the subparticle level, like
Uh-huh.
all the nutrients that it needs to grow. It's like,
Yeah.
send me potassium, send
Yeah.
me salt, send me magnesium, send me all the things that I need to build this thing. And that homing beacon, grows into a whatever life form that it is,
Mhm.
wheat,
Yeah.
a deer, a
Yeah.
human,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And then whatever that entity is that's being born is its homing beacon has like a battery life, like it has a life, like
Right.
that a limit on the time frame that it's going to be able to send its signal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know and I mean it kind of gets to like when I think of it in those terms, like like death is just part of the experience.
Right.
But why is it hurting us so much, like to be
I know.
exposed to it? Why does it make us, this guy
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Why, like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's something about the experience that we're having that is making us angry and broken and hurt. And,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. That's,
Well, I mean, some of it is that it's in the hospital, it's rarely allowed to die naturally. Society today seems to want to save everyone and prolong the life as long as possible. So there's that, which is we've seen so many patients being kept alive when they should just be allowed to die naturally. And so it's rough for us to watch that. knowing that like it is still going to be the outcome. We're just prolonging it and prolonging it. The outcome's still going to be the same. Expired. Like time is up, passing away.
Fine.
But we just prolong. But then you get the ones that come in and you question like, is it their time? I mean, I guess. So it's very abrupt. So it's, unexpected. And I think that is also a challenge for our brains to handle that too, because although we may not know them as a person, even if they just come in the ER or life flighted in and you get them in the unit, and you try all night long, and they die, and despite everything that you're doing, it's that like there's something there that doesn't click in the brain or.
Well, I mean, that's kind of, that's like, there's a long explanation of kind of one of the ways that I see society, and it's not a comprehensive thing. Like, have you heard of planned obsolescence, designed obsolescence? The idea. So the Ford factories were the first model of this. When we, like, after the Industrial Revolution, we began to depend on efficiencies. So the Ford factories, if they designed a car to last forever, then they would work themselves out of a job.
Right.
And so they had to design parts, or they designed parts to fail at designed intervals, planned intervals.
Yeah.
And so, like, healthcare has certainly implemented that. So, I mean, I think maybe they like really maximized it, especially in the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
Which is that if you think of it in these terms, that you're designing something to fail at a planned interval, like the 30, 60, 90-day supply of pills or medicines, it certainly could appear that is what happened.
Yeah.
And, that philosophy, that design philosophy is not about health. It's more about money.
Yeah.
So, like, connecting it to kind of the trauma of caregiving in the modern setting, it's very left brain. It's very objective. It's very logical. Like, that is a logical thing to do. So here's another context piece for how the pharmaceutical companies were kind of pushed into that. And this is anecdotal. It's from a conversation that I had with a doctor who I trust his opinion. I haven't verified this information, so take it for what it is. Essentially, what his input to this idea was that early on in the pharmaceutical industry, there was a doctor scientist that had invented a drug that had, I believe, vitamin D in it, and it was rejected, and he was not able to patent that drug. Therefore, he wasn't able to make money on that drug because it was a natural occurring substance. So anything with any vitamins or minerals was not capable of being patented because it was natural, because it just occurred naturally, which is just so crazy.
Well, it is. I mean, you just say the words and you're just like, what? Like, who made that up? Somebody just made that rule to say, because you know why? That's actually going to cure people. So that's not our goal.
No, I mean, I don't know that I don't know that you can make that jump. Like, I don't know that you could make that jump that someone made a rule and the reason that they made that rule is that it would help people. I think that's viewing people in a negative term, that, like, we have no way of knowing if that was the driving force. Like, I don't think that would be I think we have a choice to view people as good or bad. And if you choose to see that choice as it would help people, and therefore we chose not to do it, that's choosing to see people and, like, the society that exists in a very negative light. And
so was it because it was naturally occurring and anybody could get their hands on it? Or why do you think?
Anybody, like, you can't patent something that's just generally available.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't attribute any malice to the decision. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it like meaning the pharmaceutical companies, like, I don't think that, like, from choosing to like view it from that angle, that it, like, without malice, that the decision was made without malice. When you open that door, then the choice of the pharmaceutical companies becomes not a negative one, but a logical one, which comes back to like what we're trying to do, which is connect the left brain and the right brain and the outcomes. So part of the outcome of being like that was a logical decision. Like the company, like, you have to make money.
Yeah.
Like this thing doesn't, like, none of the things that, like, the microphone company had to have an income in order to continue to make microphones. Like,
right.
Pharmaceutical companies have to make money in order to, like, I'm not arguing that there aren't ethical issues within the pharmaceutical industry. I'm just saying that in this, like, how it became what it is was logical. It
right.
makes sense from that perspective. Yeah. You know, the whole idea of planned obsolescence is very logic heavy. It's very like, we're going to design this thing for this outcome. And how much of that is ingrained in our psyche, like, that, you know, we came, we saw, we conquered. We, like, we just show up and we do the things where the outcome is going to, it's almost guaranteed. And it's not. I mean,
right. It feels like it should be.
It feels like
if you do what you're supposed to do, if you follow the process that's been set, you should get the outcome.
See, that's my point. Like,
yeah,
like it's like it's part of our psyche to think that way.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just not, like, it makes failure almost a sin.
Yeah.
Like, it makes failure like, and I hate to use that word sin, but it makes failure a, like,
undesired outcome.
It just,
yeah. Right. With people around you and within your own brain. So why do you think we feel that? I mean, we feel that way because the opposite's just in
control.
Yeah.
We think we're in control, and in so many ways we are not. Like, and that's I think that is that's this picture, man.
Yeah.
Like, I thought I could control the outcome. I can't control the outcome.
No. Right. He's missing so much, you know. It's like, I don't know. You go into nursing very naive, I think, to the outcome. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, it's like children who look at nurses and high schoolers who like, oh, I totally want to be a nurse, you know. And that kind of goes back to even the essence of nursing, that episode. It was like you go into it with such a pure heart and a genuine desire to make a difference. And that you have control to do that. And so then it's that dichotomy when you get in there after a few years and you're like, wait a minute. This is way different than what I thought. You know? And does it have to be? I mean, if you knew what it was going to be like, either you wouldn't do it or you could prepare better.
I mean, honestly, when you were talking about earlier, like, kind of, you know, if knowing what we know now, if you could go back and it would be, you know, you'd have this bird's eye view, a wider angle of the situation, and you do things different. Maybe it wouldn't turned out the way that it turned out. What I was thinking when you were saying that is, if I had that then, I would have left a long time ago. Yeah. I would have left way early. I would have found something else, some other way to live and do. Yeah. You know, I don't think that I would have stayed. And you know, like, even now, like, I've done it for so long, it's all I know. I mean, and that's not entirely true. I know a lot of things. I have a lot of, you know, I'm skilled in a lot of different ways. Yeah. But
career wise and like the hourly, I got to make money and put money in my bank account. That's easy. It's easy to nurse to get money in your bank account.
It's easy, but it's a hard job.
But it's
hard.
hard. Yeah. Because what's hard is knowing our other skill, like doing this podcast. It's hard. It's challenging. It's out of the comfort zone. It's, and all the things, you're woodworking, me coaching, all of the things. It's like what feels easy is to just get back in that lane, to stay in the lane. When you get out of the lane, you don't have the bumpers there, and there's more to navigate, and but I think that by us doing this and showing people that you can keep nursing, but you don't have to suffer for it. You can include other things. You can do some half. You can do, you can get into different nursing. You can, there's so many different things that you can do. Some people, you could even stay in the same career, in the same field, and still have a totally different outlook on it. It's just, we didn't have this podcast when, we didn't have that when we were going through, like, I think I said this too, that the self-care for nurses. I was looking back at my pictures, trying to find some from long ago. And I mean, I started looking at like self-care and looking into myself. I mean, clear back. I quit drinking in 2017. So it was even back then, but it didn't connect to the nursing piece until, well, for me, it was after COVID. So, I mean, it took a lot more weighing down on me for me to be like, okay, I think that is a big piece of it. And so, I needed to adjust and step back from that, which is probably similar to how you felt when you stepped back. It took that, and then that you were like, I have to step back. And, you don't know that. You don't know that going in.
Yeah. I mean, I was stepping away for lots of reasons. It's only taken, 10 years of therapy to figure the real thing that I was like, and I can even remember in that time having thoughts that, I can't do this anymore. I don't do it. And I don't always feel that way.
Yeah.
I don't always feel that way, but when I have a bad day, it's a really bad day.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not saying
Oh. Well, I don't know. So, you started kind of to say about the like PTSD or trauma of working in healthcare or whatnot. But a lot of what made me stressed was the outcomes, that the processes didn't always fit the situation and couldn't be changed. So policies and procedures, some of them are created in committees with nursing input, but a lot of them are just standards set. And it feels a lot of the time like that's unattainable to actually do it that way in the real situations. Like when you're at a desk or you're sitting around a table and you're creating the policies, that's one situation. But when you're in it and you're trying to follow what you're supposed to do, there's so many more variables, and it sometimes is very difficult to get the outcome. And then it's almost like sometimes you're chastised for that. You're not like, it's like, but you have no idea what else was going on, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And that it feels like defeat. So I think I took a lot of that on personally, that I could not attain the level of or their desired outcome sometimes. But here I'm like, but my hands are tied behind my back and I have no supplies and I had to stand on one leg and I had to jump around, like how do you, there was no possible way that could even, I couldn't do it, but feeling like a failure, and then
because
having
you didn't meet that standard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because it's purely objective, and there is no like out from that policy there.
Right.
And so I'm listening to you talk, and I'm kind of envisioning mitosis, when
Uh-huh.
two cells are separating. Like
Yeah.
you're existing in this world where, an open heart is an open heart. It just is. And then so meaning that all of the uh, all of the ways that we compartmentalize illness in the administrative, we encapsulate this disease, and anything that doesn't fit within this boundary, you know, isn't, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so, but then when you're in the real clinical situation where you're the nurse and you're operating, and the physiological presentation of what's happening demands that you take another path, you're like, this is mitosis. The two cells are separated. You're like going off into this world where your objective reality is based on clinical decision, experience, knowledge, all of the data you're receiving, and you're leaving this world of policy over here, and you're doing what is right for the patient. And then these two worlds are going to collide at the end. And then you're the one in trouble, and that's not okay.
Yeah. That's where it's really not okay. And, I don't know if there's any fix for that. I think just bringing awareness to that, and that nurses who feel similarly and that have been in similar situations, you're not the crazy one. It's tough. It's a tough situation to be in mentally as well. Not only, whether you get a talking to, or, come in my office, let's chat about this, or whatever it is, but then the beating up of yourself, when you go home, and just the lingering thoughts about it. And could I have done it different? I should have done it different. They said I should have done it different. And, but you're like, but wait a minute. I mean, like that he survived, like he's alive, and, or, whatever the case may be, that you went with your left and right brain, I think, came together and really did what needed to be done, but it doesn't fit in either category, and that's trauma. That can be traumatizing to your brain.
Absolutely.
And maybe if you can recognize that, kind of process through it, and know that it's not who you are, or it goes against your personal character, but it just naming it for what it is, and kind of taking your emotion or your mental self out of it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that, I don't know if that would work.
Yeah.
It's challenging.
It is challenging. But I mean, that's, the reality is, like, healthcare is in a mess.
Yeah.
And us talking about it, I have spent a lot of time thinking about how to come up with solutions. And by myself, I know that I can't figure out all of
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it takes me back to the idea of a nursing think tank. I've had this idea for so long, like, to get a bunch of nurses in groups of, 5, 6, I just kind of visualize it, like, in a hotel lobby or a conference space, tables, and we come up with ideas, and we all, present our ideas. It just seems like it would be so much fun. I think it would be so much fun.
Yeah. Well, and so I don't know what the word, like, just rewarding, and to know just connection, and connecting with others who think alike. And just as we have ideas about what may or may not work, other people have so many ideas. I mean, there's so many people. Everybody has a way, everybody has valuable input to, because their own experiences, talking about experience is so important for everyone to do that, and to be recognized, and to be seen, for what they feel, good or bad.
Right.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have to try and get that together sometime. That'd be fun. Even virtually, Yeah.
Yeah, you could have them virtually.
We were going to talk about evidence-based practice, and is, I think that has a lot to do with outcomes, and it's heavy on the nursing side. I think we're taught about evidence-based practice starting in nursing school. That's always the gold standard. And, a lot of hospitals use that. And that, I think, they're, like you were saying, I mean, there's some criticisms about it as well.
Yeah, just that the data can be manipulated. And then I think pharmaceutical industry has, I think, been guilty of that. It goes back to what I always bring up objectivity and subjectivity, and I've shared the idea of kind of how I see, the theory of relativity, and how he had to just naturally pursue and follow to its very end an objective mathematical course. But at the bottom, he reached the fact that it's relative,
Mhm.
and I think that is on display in the idea of the mitotic process, mitosis, where you've got the policy and the nurse that's at the bedside. We just want
Yeah.
to feel that. I think that is a picture of what I'm saying there, and evidence. Even in the work that we're doing, like the Buteyko breathing that I described earlier.
Mhm.
If you breathe through your nose slowly to the point where you can't hear your breath, it will increase the vasodilators in your whole body.
Mhm.
Yeah, like that's evidence based. Like they did science to, hash that out and figure
Mhm.
out that you can measurably mark the difference between this breathing and normal breathing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so, like, we love evidence.
Yeah.
We love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It
just,
almost makes it valid. If there's no evidence, then it's not valid.
and this goes right back to what I was saying about the, we came, we saw, we conquered idea. What, like, we want to be able to just, put our foot forward on a path and walk it, and the outcome is going to be,
Yeah.
it's going to be what we expect it to be, and
Right.
it's not. Like,
Yeah.
managing those expectations is, like, when it's so ingrained in our psyche to be
Yeah.
so left brain.
Yeah.
It's like like we talked about on the last episode of left brain. It's not good to be all of either. It's not good to be left
Right.
brain, all left brain. It's not good to be all right brain.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think,
Well, I think a lot of, the evidence-based practice and the science and all of that it at times can leave out the humanness that nursing, or just in general, just being a human with a soul. And, I said it a lot in frustration when I was at work. I'd be like, we are humans taking care of other humans. Like, it's not an assembly line.
yes,
It's not mechanical.
right.
There are mechanics and there are things that have to be done in order. But if you boil it down, you are a human with a soul taking care of another human with a soul. And you cannot eliminate that. You cannot. You can make all the rules you want to. And it was very obvious during COVID when, we were masked, we were gowned, we were hidden. And look what it did. Look how many people that killed. And the families, and not the lack of human connection literally killed people. And it's so important to nurses to have that human aspect of it, because that is why we go into it. That is what it is. If you wanted to be real technical, then you're going to do something else. You're going to be like a chemical engineer or an architect, something that that is the primary thing that you're doing. But the primary thing that nurses are doing is connecting with another human on a soul level.
Yes.
And yes, you're using your knowledge, you're using the technical skills, but you can't just have that. And so, using evidence-based practice, I feel, is the best practice, but in creating the evidence-based practice, I feel like sometimes the human soul aspect is left out of it.
Mhm.
And I think that's what you meant, when you're saying data can be manipulated, because it certainly can. It's just numbers. But human connection and soul connection and caring and the emotional energy that provides, that cannot be replicated in some kind of clinical, verbiage.
Yes.
And it's not the same every time, because we are each different. We're each a different human. And so I may take care of someone differently than, well, most certainly, I take care of somebody differently than you take care of somebody.
Of course.
Neither is wrong.
Uh-huh.
Neither is better.
Right.
It is just different.
Mhm.
And with evidence based, it really does, to me, it leaves out that human connection piece. It's so important, but it makes it hard, because if you're measuring things by that, and you're measuring outcomes by just that, or clinical outcomes, you're not getting the whole picture. You can't leave out the human connection piece of it. And that's very hard to measure. It's almost impossible to measure, honestly,
Mhm.
because even if you're connecting and if you're giving your soul and you're being your humble, kind, loving human, the patient on the other side might not be receiving it that way.
Uh-huh.
And that's going to affect everything. It's going to affect their outcome, their wellness or illness. It's going to affect how they fill out the survey, and
Right.
you didn't do anything wrong. You
Right.
were just being you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very, there's just a lot more to it than what they really are teaching you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You don't know that when you are just getting started. You feel like it's just all going to flow so
Yeah.
nicely. And then you're like, this shit don't flow. That's not
Yeah,
right.
but I mean, so much of that path is so objective.
Yes, I know.
I don't know if we've talked about this before, but the void that was left after nursing school, where I had bulleted points of
Yeah.
everything that was expected of me for the whole year,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
And
like,
highlighted. Uh-huh.
and highlighted like
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
you've got to meet all of these marks, and then now you're just a nurse. Now you're just a nurse. Like
Yeah.
but I mean, and then you get in, you jump right into the ICU or whatever unit that you're in, and you're learning and learning and learning, and then once you hit that kind of place where, I mean, it's never cruise control, but you hit a place of comfortability where
Uh-huh.
it's your new normal. It's like, okay, what's my next objective?
Yeah.
What's the next thing?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I felt a tremendous void
Yeah.
in that place,
Yeah. It,
on top of all of the suffering and death.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's next?
Yeah. Well, you can't, your mind wants to categorize all that and put this in this bucket and this in that bucket and this in that bucket. But that's not really, I mean, that's the left brain. I mean,
It
putting
goes
things in
back to left
buckets.
brain. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So because you do have a right brain and you do have a soul and you are a human with emotions, and things can't just only be in buckets,
Yeah.
which is where I placed a lot of things in buckets. And
Real.
then, because at some point all the buckets literally just dump out and now you have a mess,
Uh-huh.
I think, I think we both kind of went through that and are working on
Mm-hmm.
cleaning up the mess,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anything else we left out or we want to talk about?
It's a beautiful rainy day here. Yeah.
I know, I know.
So
I know
nice.
it's been a long time with rain, but I love the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so green.
Yeah. It is so, and it is so important to take time to just notice. Just notice. Just
Yeah.
notice the green. Notice the big tree with the roots in the ground. Notice the squirrel crawling up the tree. Because honestly, really, here's a key. You cannot get to your inner mind of what's really going on with you until you're quiet.
Mm-hmm.
You can't.
Right.
Until you shut your mind, shut out the noise and get here and in. You can't hear it.
Yeah.
You can't hear it. I didn't ever know that. I didn't know. I couldn't really be quiet. I always needed something, alarms, children, busy, but you can't hear what's really in here until you get quiet and start noticing.
Right.
And get quiet. Part of a way that you can help yourself to learn to get quiet is noticing.
Mm-hmm.
So just noticing, and you're quiet, and you feel, you see, you're present, looking around, and that idea has been huge for me in my healing. Sometimes I don't like what I hear, but that just gives me something I've got to write down and be like, oh, okay, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
I was thinking when you were talking about the tree roots and the trees, and it would have been a funny time for you to post your meme that you had to share.
Oh, let me do it. We'll end with this. So how's it going? Is it coming up? There it is. Her smile. She's smiling. This is new. This is new, sharing memes, but we think it's real neat. So I think we're going to start doing it. There you are. So we'll just leave it at that. Please know, the day shift always comes. The day shift always comes. Someone is always coming at 7 a.m.
It's funny how this will lead you to see the tree roots and the trees and all the beauty that there is to experience in the world.
Totally. Yeah.
Sometimes being a nurse is amazing.
I know. Oh, we are amazing, for real. Every nurse is amazing. It's a complicated job, and it really takes more than what anybody really knows. And so all nurses should know that amazing, special, one of a kind, like so necessary.
So kudos to all you nurses out there that
totally
listening to us. And thank you for taking the time to listen to Julie and I just process our experiences. I mean, that's really what we're doing. And I hope that it helps you to continue to be awesome.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next week.
Adios.
Hi, I'm Julie.
And I'm Caleb. Welcome to Nursing You, the podcast where we redefine nursing in today's healthcare landscape. Join Julie and I as we step outside the box on an unconventional healing journey.
Together, we're diving deep into the heart of nursing, exploring the intricate relationships between caregivers and patients with sincerity and depth.
Our mission is to create an open and collaborative experience where learning is expansive and fun.
From the psychological impacts of nursing to the larger implications on the healthcare